Welcome back, everyone. I'm Massimo Rigotti, and this is the Sober Method podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Nan Saysana, certified life and weight loss coach, Havening techniques practitioner, and founder of Milo BingeFix. With over 9,000 coaching sessions and more than 7 years of dedicated work, Nan specializes in helping high-achieving women who are incredibly disciplined all day long, yet find themselves losing control at night with food, scrolling, or other numbing behaviors. She brings a rare blend of personal transformation and proven clinical tools to the very moment when the urge hits. We're going to talk about how to rewire that nighttime urge loop using practical neuroscience-backed techniques so you can catch it in under 10 seconds and finally feel in control without relying on that willpower alone. Nan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
It's very nice to have you here as well. So, Nan, you have built an impressive practice by helping high achievers break free from binge and urge cycles. But your own path, it started in some very personal struggles. Would you be willing to share a bit about the challenges you navigated earlier in life?
Totally. Yes. The reason I'm so passionate about helping women, high achieving women, stop overeating, whether it's binge eating, stress eating, grazing throughout the day, etc., is because it's my struggle. It's my own struggle. I think it started around the age of 16 and it lasted for 30 years. So 3 decades of my life. I was struggling with food, wanting to behave at night and at the same time finding my hand in the cookie jar without really wanting it to be there. And so that's why now I found the solution. I'm so passionate about letting other people know that there is a solution. It's possible. It's not going to be magical, even though that's basically what we would want, that overnight, of course, I'm going to change my behavior. It's not going to happen this way, but it doesn't matter because there's a solution. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. And I've done it. If I think of it, I was my most difficult client. And yet I'm here today sharing with you that it is possible. So I do believe that there's a way to change the behavior, just like with your clients, you help them change the behavior too. So it's really my own struggle that's making me know now that yes, it is possible and it's so much better on the other side.
Yeah, that's great. So, you talk about that and recognizing it. So, the turning point, where you realize that helping people with these hidden nighttime patterns was not something that you had to overcome, but something that you wanted to master and give to others. Where was that turning point for you?
Yeah, so the turning point for me was actually finding that what I had tried before didn't work. Typically when you struggle with food, you read everywhere that you should go on a diet, calories in, calories out, etc. So that's what I did for so many years. I tried to change the way I was eating. So I tried to change my food. All of a sudden, there were some good foods and bad foods. And I also tried to change the amount of food I was having, the quantity. I also limited my portion sizes and so on. But still, in the evening, it didn't change my behavior. I would still open the jar of Nutella, peanut butter, jam, whatever I found, and I would eat it regardless of the good foods I had eaten throughout the day, or regardless of the amount of, vitamins or micronutrients that I had eaten. So it didn't work. I also exercised a lot. I worked out. I ran marathons thinking, okay, now I'm doing better, so it should follow, but it didn't at all. So when I realized that this was not working, that's when I decided to look into other things, and typically the mindset. I had never explored mindset before. And when I learned about this, when I learned the real reason why I was overeating at night, and it had nothing to do with the food, actually, it had nothing to do with me being a bad person, inherently, but it had to do with my mindset. Then I realized, oh, so if there's a very specific cause that I can pinpoint and I can have a look at, then I'm not hopeless. I have a solution. Of course, I need to learn about this a bit more. I need to practice because knowledge without practice, not doing anything. But there's a way out. And so that was really the turning point. And I kept telling myself whenever I was struggling, that it was so unpleasant, not just to find myself in the evening back in the kitchen when I told myself, nope, I'm not going to do that anymore, but also to be thinking about food and my behavior all throughout the day. Am I going to be able to stay reading a book at night, or am I still going to find myself eating chocolate? That was obsessive. I kept thinking about food all the time, and I wanted that gone too. So I was telling myself that if I found the solution to stop behaving this way, overeating at night, but also to stop thinking about food so much, it was taking such a big place in my brain and in my life, then I really want to let other people know that it's possible. So that was really the turning point, finding that solution, focusing on mindset eventually, and finally seeing that, oh, it's working for me. So it could also work for other people. That was huge. That was so liberating and empowering.
Yes, I can imagine it was. And so the many high achievers that are quietly battling their own evening urges right now, and they're trying to project this strength and discipline during the day. And you just talked about mindset. I wonder if you could, for us, take us into what mind patterns were going on inside your own head that you had to confront before you felt strong enough to guide others through that same battle.
Right, absolutely. Yes. So it really felt as if I was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Throughout the day, I was being good. I was paying attention to my portion. I was paying attention to what I was eating, thinking, oh, I'm feeding my body right. I'm doing good, very good. Keep on. And at the same time, dreading a little bit what could come. So there was this, yeah, I'm doing it right. And I hope I keep doing it right. I hope something doesn't take over me in the evening. I hope I yeah, I'm fine until tonight. So there was already this dread, this part of me that was fearing, dreading what would happen in the evening. And in the evening, indeed, I was having a different thought patterns like, oh, I behaved really well. I did well today, so I deserve a little. I can let my hair loose and just have a little something. And then once I had the little something, whatever it was, could have been, something as neutral like a yogurt, but that was not planned. But even that, I would then tell myself, oh, see, you overdid it. You didn't respect your plan. So you've ruined it all. And I would be very harsh. I would have those cruel thoughts about me that, oh, see, you've ruined it again. You can't trust yourself again. You've just had this, so you might as well finish the whole jar, the whole box, the whole whatever it was. And I would. And then I would be even meaner to myself. I would really technically be a bully to myself. Just see, you can't trust yourself. You've done it again. There's no stopping you. Things like that. And that, even though I think that the intention was actually to be able to stop, it was driving me to the opposite result, because when you're being a bully to yourself, you don't want to pay attention. You don't want to stop. All you want is to comfort yourself. And since you've been comforting yourself after a hard day, telling yourself, oh, you deserve to be nice to yourself, you deserve a treat, and you turn to food, well, when you're being mean to yourself, you also want to be kind to yourself. And since the only way you've learned to be kind to yourself, even if it's not really kind, it's to turn to food, and of course, you're going to recreate that pattern, even if it's not at all what you want.
So I mean, this is just incredible to me that you would bully yourself
Mm,
after giving yourself a small reward. And it's almost like just one bite was enough to say, you spoiled everything. Your
totally.
whole plan is out the window. Now, how do you attack that root cause? Because there is a root cause, I assume, here that allows you to break that cycle. Can you explain how your tools today actually address that root and not
Yes.
just the surface?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's really important to go deep indeed, because a lot of people tell me, well, I turn to food because it's good. It looks good. And so I can't stop, which makes sense, except that there are probably plenty of times when the food looks just as good and yet you stop. You start yourself better. So what's going on? What's going on really that you turn to food? And really, um, I like what you're saying about the root and how to attack the root cause. And basically, whether we're using the stick, you've done something terrible today. You've eaten something that was not on your plan.
Mhm.
Or using the carrot, it's just, okay, um, you had a hard day indeed, so you do deserve a treat now. It could be food, but it could be something else. Maybe you need something else. So really finding that root cause, that if we turn to food at the end of a hard day, it's not because we want to ruin or self-sabotage our efforts. It's because we want to be kind to ourselves. We want to give something positive. So what is it, right? What happened during the day that makes turning to food so indispensable, so necessary? And what do we need, basically? And so it's really finding what's going on deeply, because the food is just the tip of the iceberg. Just like with your people, I guess that the alcohol is just the form it takes. Just like for some people, it's the scrolling, it's the screen, it's the skin picking or yelling at people. It's just the form that it takes. But underneath it all, there's something going on. So what is it? And it can be different for different people. But it could also be very typically, what is the most common is that you feel overwhelmed, you feel stressed, right? At the end of the day, you still have many things going on. And at the same time, you feel exhausted and you want to reward yourself, you want to congratulate yourself for having gone through this hard day. It could also be something like loneliness. It's the end of the day and you wish you could share something, and there are people or there are not people and they're not available, and you feel something's missing. Or it could be boredom. Yes, it's just there's nothing for me to do. So what to do? Well, let's turn to food. Things like that. So it depends what it is, but that would be the root cause. There's the tip of the iceberg, the food, we turn to food, and there's these emotions underneath this. That, for me, is the root cause we need to have a look at so that then we stop turning to food.
Would you be willing to share what your root cause was and what you discovered about yourself?
Yes. So all of this, basically,
All of those things.
all of those
Okay.
things. Yes. But I think that mainly there was this, yeah, I'm not good enough. And I think a lot of people have the same thing. The deep down cause is that this belief that, oh, I'm not good enough. What I did today, yeah, maybe it was okay. But still, I could have done more. I could have done it better. And look, I still have all of this to do for tomorrow. And if I really want to have an impact tomorrow on the life of people around me, I need to do it very, very good, very, very well. So I was putting a lot of pressure on myself because I was thinking that, yeah, whatever I do, it's not going to be good enough anyway. So yes, there was this, and that was taking the shape of stress, pressure, perfectionism, all those things. Yeah.
And perhaps the nurturing aspect of this is overlooked, I think, a lot of times. Would you say? And you talked about loneliness
Hmm.
and not having possibly somebody there to comfort you in the moment and build up some, that belief in oneself often comes from validation outside. Are there any approaches that you give people to try to build up that inner confidence?
Right. No, I love that. Yes. I love what you're saying about building that inner confidence, because we can tell other people, well, at the end of a hard day, here's what I'd really like for you to tell me, or what I'd like you to do for me. And yeah, it can be a beautiful dialogue. And also, we don't have to rely on other people to do that because unfortunately, they may not be available for whatever reason. So I like, yes, indeed, that we can rely on ourselves. It's a learning, it's a skill that we learn, but how to create our own compassion, our own comfort, our own kindness towards ourselves. And it's going to spread to others, which is going to also fuel and nurture that relationship with others. But yes, why not start by, I think that's Gandhi who said, be the example you want you to see in the world. So if you want more compassion in the world, if you want more kindness in the world, you can start with yourself. So dropping the stick when at the end of the day you tend to beat yourself up for not being enough, for not doing it right, whatever, and try to see, okay, right, okay, there's this voice in my head. It's here. I acknowledge it. I don't have to believe that voice. And I can also try to see what I did right today. Even though, of course, it's not perfect the way my high standards would have it, but still, why was it okay? Why was it right? Why was it going in the right direction? Right?
Yeah.
So, and finding those moments, it can actually make you feel a little bit better without relying on the food, without relying on somebody external that may not have the means either to speak kindly to yourself, because perhaps the inner dialogue that they have is the same as you. So, of course, they can't. They can't give you what you would want, which makes sense.
Yes. Most people aren't strong enough themselves to help others. sadly, but that's kind of the world we live in.
Exactly.
So when I think about all of the methods out there and all of the different ways, oftentimes I just feel like they're too slow in the heat of the moment. So for my listeners, I'm particularly interested in whether this can be done in one's mind in 10 seconds, for instance. Like when a trigger actually hits, what are 3 or 4 things that they could identify immediately, and how can they do it fast enough to stop it before the behavior starts to gain momentum and spiral out of control?
Yes. And I like that. So, yes, there are things we can do in the moment, but I agree with you. Let's catch the moment before it happens. So, one thing that I love to do is to use some havening techniques. So, I've been recently certified in havening techniques, but it's still very new and lots of people don't know about this. So, I'm happy to share. Havening techniques are basically using the touch. We know that the sense of touch is really important for babies, for newborns, but I didn't know that it would also be very important for us human beings, grown-ups. But it's actually a way for the brain to feel safe when you simply give yourself a hug or simply rub your hands together, which can be, something that you do very discreetly wherever you are. You can walk in the street, be at a meeting and simply rub your hands together. That actually sends signals to the brain that it's okay, it's safe. So when you have this part of the brain, which is called the amygdala, on high alert, saying, something's terrible is going on. Quick, I need food, or I need a drink, or I need a smoke, or whatever. You can rub your hands. It takes just a few minutes or even seconds, and it actually sends signals to the brain that it's okay, it's safe. You can do it in the moment when you feel the urge hit. You can also take deep breath. We know also that taking deep breath helps the body calm down. So that can be very efficient in the moment. And you can train your brain, you can train yourself to do that on a regular basis. I like to use the analogy of a shaken soda bottle. If you want to open a shaken soda bottle in the moment, it may not be a very good idea. We know it's going to splash everywhere. Not the best thing to do. But you can turn the lid of this soda bottle a little bit and hear the psh of the gas that is released, so that eventually when you open the bottle fully, it doesn't splash everywhere. So that's really what I encourage my clients to do. So whenever you have an opportunity to wash your hands, for instance, and I don't know about you, but since COVID, I do it many times a day. So that's actually an opportunity to rub your hands together under the water. And you can add some deep breath, and you can also check with yourself, how am I feeling right now? And it can be as simple as, am I feeling good? Am I feeling bad? It doesn't have to be super complicated. But if you want, you can do what I've done, is stick to the walls of your bathroom in your home some feelings wheels, so that at the same time you can have a look. Okay, what am I feeling? A little bit stressed or frustrated or excited or anything else. So just it's a checking point and you see what's going on. And then because you've practiced it so much, it's going to be easier and easier in the moment to access to those resources, rubbing your hands together, taking some deep breath and just noticing, oh, I'm not feeling very good. And that's it. That can be that.
I don't know about the listeners, but right now, just listening to that, picturing me rubbing my hands together was actually making me calmer.
I love it.
So, what's one common mistake that people make when they first try this? Like, are they trying to do it too fast? And how do you help them correct it so they can utilize this and see it actually function?
Right. Yes, I think that one of the first mistake that we do, especially if we are high achievers with high standards, expecting with a lot of expectations for ourselves, we expect to get it right the first time. It's just like, yep, I heard Nan. It's very clear. I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it right. And it's going to solve everything magically. Except that there's nothing we learned throughout our lives that we immediately got, we everything we learn, whether it's reading, talking, riding a bike, etc., we learn it by making mistakes. So it's the very same thing here. Expect to make mistakes. Expect not to get it right altogether perfect the first time. It's actually very normal. That's how we learn. And I love to use this analogy of the baby learning how to stand up. They're going to stand up for maybe a split second and then they're going to fall back on their bottom again. But they're going to stand up again and again and again and fall and fall and fall. But each time they get up again, they actually strengthen their legs so that then when they fully stand up and not as wobbly as before, they will be able to walk and then run and then jump because they've strengthened their legs. So view all those failures, if we want to call them failures, we don't have to, but those learning moments, opportunities to learn, just like that, you're strengthening a muscle. And you don't have to make it super hard by wanting to master everything at the same time. If you think that breathing deep, um, when you wash your hands is easier for you, well, start here. Start with the easiest. And then remember that you can add something else, just like naming your emotion or really intentionally rubbing your hands or adding some self-hug, whatever feels the most doable. Start there. And don't expect to get it right 100% the first time, but expect to build up just like you would build up on anything else. Just like when you learned how to drive, you were not expected to go through the highway on the first time, I suspect. So it's the same thing. Take it slow, break it down, starting with what feels the most doable right now, and just challenge yourself to maybe add 1 degree more difficult each and every time. And that's it. And if it's too hard, okay, go back down again. Make it
And
easy.
give yourself a little bit of grace, right?
Totally, totally. And then celebrate and then congratulate yourself for doing it.
Yes,
Just that.
exactly. Nan, everything you just described, observing the urge, the instant it arises, mapping new response, executing this in real time, it actually sounds almost exactly like the observe and behavior steps in Sober Method. How do you see your tools working alongside a framework like Sober? And for the listeners out there who want to go deeper with you, what is the best place to find, or where is the best place to find you? Is it milobingefix.com? Is that a good starting point?
Totally. Yes, absolutely. Because on milobingefix.com, and it's spelled MILO bingefix.com, this is where you can see who I work with, how I work with the women I help, and what's life like when you are finally able to stop at one bite. Because I don't want people to restrict themselves, and not never ever to have pizza or ice cream. No, life is to be enjoyed. Food is part of life. So no, what is so fascinating is that, and I guess that's exactly what you do with your people, is just finding that balance, but a balance that suits you. And it may take a very different form for different people. Yeah, so have a look at milobingefix.com. This is where you'll see how I work with people. And if you like this conversation, and I know I do, thank you so much for having me. You're probably going also to like my masterclass, which is free and which is called Just Ate Dinner. Why do I want more? You can also have a look at a free gift that I've created, which is called How Not to Eat Everything After Dinner. And so, yeah, there are plenty of opportunities to try all this.
That's fantastic. And for the listener who is already sober, but still feels like something is missing or holding them back at night, what is the biggest mindset or identity shift that you see people making once they start mastering the practical urge interruption tools?
Yes. So, what I'm really thrilled about is that instead of being in the moment and really, being as if in a tunnel vision, there's only the food. You can only focus on the food, and that's all that matters. And regardless of your goals or whatever you were thinking in the morning, promising today I'll be good, and that flies out of the window. But what I'm really thrilled is when my clients are able to shift and to think about how they're going to feel afterwards. And that's really when I see them that they finally, moving past their struggle. It's just thinking it can take different shapes, but it could be, okay, no, I'm going to have a stomachache afterwards. I'm going to regret it afterwards. Things like that. And they start to think about that future version of themselves and being kind and loving technically about that. That's when I see that, okay, they're able to shift. It's not just in the moment, I really want this. It's just I also want to think about this future self, future version of me. That I think that's gold when they're
Yeah,
able to do that.
that's outstanding practical wisdom. It really is. Well, everyone, here is the sober move that I want every high performer listening to take this week, inspired directly from Nan's work on the nighttime urge loop. First, I want you to observe the exact moment tonight when the house gets quiet after a long, disciplined day and that subtle, just one thought or urge first appears, whether that's reaching for a drink, food, scrolling, or any other numbing behavior. Catch it in that critical 10-second window before your hand moves. Behavior in those few seconds. I want you to quickly name what's happening and ask yourself, what is prompting this event or vulnerability for my day that made this urge more likely? What automatic thought or emotion is showing up right now? And then execute by interrupting the loop immediately with one of Nan's rapid tools that she talked about today. Name the urge out loud or in your mind and quickly apply a grounding technique or Havening touch, if you know it, and consciously choose one small action that aligns with the confident, sober version of yourself that you're becoming. And in Restore, if this nighttime pattern has created distance with loved ones or eroded your self trust in the past, I want you to take one honest step this week to own it and show them through your actions the stronger person that you are becoming. So, Nan, we have a tradition on this podcast where each guest answers a question from my last guest. And then after answering, we're going to get your question for my next guest. So, Dr. Jess Armine left this question for you. What's the most meaningful thing in becoming sober?
It's the most meaningful thing in becoming sober. I think that's the most meaningful thing when you become sober is that you're finally you. You allow yourself to be your authentic self because you're no longer, some of my clients say that they feel like a slave to food, and maybe your clients feel like a slave to drinks. And when you remove that, when you're no longer dependent, relying on something external, and of course, for other people, it could be, scrolling their phones, screens, and etc. Um, then you allow yourself to be yourself, basically. And with all the gems that you are, all the strength that were buried under this. And I think that's I've got chills as I mentioned it, because I think that's fantastic when finally it's as if there was this raw diamond that was covered in dust and dirt and air. And finally we can see you because you can finally shine. And I think that's beautiful. And that's something that I'm always thrilled to see.
Well, that's fantastic. I love this answer. Okay, it's your turn. What's one question that you would like to leave for my next guest?
Right. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I was thinking, since your grandmother is 94 and mine is 107, I'd love for your next guest to think about their grandma or grandpa version of themselves, looking back on them right now. And I would love to know what this future version of themselves would say. Maybe it would be a piece of advice, maybe it would be some form of encouragement or some loving thought. I don't know. I'd love for your next guest to think about what that future version of themselves would tell their current, present version.
Like this. I really like this. And I love how you related it to us both having grandmothers alive. We're definitely very blessed to have people that are still with us so late in our own lives. So it's very great. Well, you have the last 30 seconds. Are there any words of wisdom that you feel you'd like to share with anyone who is out there listening right now?
Yes, please. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So, what I love to tell my clients is that once you realize that, yes, you've eaten the whole chocolate bar or the whole cupcake or finished a glass that you didn't want to, very often we tend to use the stick. We tend to be furious with ourselves. And I'd like for your listeners to just change one letter, but that's going to be very important. Instead of being furious with yourself, try to be curious. So instead of being the judge, sentencing you to life in prison forever and ever because you've been so bad, what about shifting to being a detective and really being curious? Just, okay, what was happening there that you were feeling that food or a drink or a smoke or whatever was so necessary, and really be curious about that. Not the why did you do that again, but really being genuinely curious. What was happening? Why did you do that again? And that's going to be so important because it's going to open up the conversation with you and you. When actually with the furious part of you, it just shuts you down completely and then you can't change anything. But the curious version of you, especially if you're also being kind, which is a skill you need to learn, that's perfectly fine. If you don't, get it, master it the first time, perfectly fine. But it's going to help you access things that you never could before. That's really what I'd love for your listeners to just try. Have a look. Have a try.
I love it. Be curious. Well, thank you, Nan. To everyone listening, I want you to keep fighting for that deeper level of confidence. I'm Massimo Rigotti, and this is the Sober Method Podcast. Please follow, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone you know needs it. Remember, everyone, your future is sober.